What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Comic Source. My name is Billy. Today we're going to be talking about WandaVision Episode 5. So we open with a scene in our Full House era of WandaVision where they're trying to rock the babies to sleep, and Wanda tries to use magic to make them fall asleep, to which that does not work. And this means that their powers are present, which we do see later on once the kids grow up a little bit. They force themselves to grow up using magic. But while they're still babies, however, Agnes comes in at the perfect time, to which that's when we have Vision crack number 1, where he starts to see like rips in the continuity of things and he starts to question reality. And Wanda kind of just plays it off like she really didn't even hear anything. But while Agnes is doing a bunch of stupid stuff that's kind of funny to make the baby stop crying and fall asleep, they age themselves up 5 years to avoid this. And that takes us into the intro song. Now, just a small thing about the intro song, I thought it was kind of funny that on the birthday cakes, they had 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 to show that it was like 5 birthdays that were skipped all at one time. So after the intro, we get a scene where Monica is being questioned by doctors, and she's saying that she's feeling grief and all of the different emotions that Wanda is feeling, which means that through her magic, she's actually projecting her feelings onto people. And then we get this snapshot of Wanda that we have not seen before. When I saw it like in real time, I thought it was from Infinity War, but once I went back and paused it, I realized that that's definitely Wanda in Westview, but I'm not sure exactly where it's from. And then we get that scene of the doctor showing Monica's x-ray and that she needs to do it again. And this shot leads me to believe that Monica is already in possession of her powers. And I'm curious to see where exactly they go with that. And then that's when we get to the briefing. And the first thing that I want to highlight from that was her parents, when they said that her parents are Irena and Oleg. When I looked up Irena and Oleg Maximoff, or at least Irena and Oleg Marvel when I was doing my research, the only appearance that they have is within the MCU. So it seems like they're going to be creating this from the ground up with this one. And then we cue like the first MCU kind of argument between two characters where they kind of sound like fans. But when Jimmy and the director were going back and forth and the director said that she has no known alias or anything like that or any like catchy superhero name, that kind of just leads me to believe that maybe she'll get crowned kind of the Scarlet Witch within this series. And then the director reminds Monica that in her report, she described being kept under that, the trance as being excruciating, terrifying, and a violation, which is kind of just more of a setup of Wanda being the antagonist or just being antagonistic in general. And then we move on to the scene of Wanda infiltrating S.W.O.R.D. to steal Vision's body, which, if memory serves me right, then that was supposed to be the post-credit scene for Endgame, but it was scrapped because they wanted Vision's death to feel more final before this show came out. And I'd also like to know why his body was spread out among 3-4 different tables. What kind of testing were they doing? Because if they were doing some type of testing, that would be violating his will as well, right? Just something to think about. I think director Tyler Hayward is a dick. And then we go back into the Hex, where Wanda's kids have now found themselves a dog named Sparky, which in the comics, that is actually Vision's dog. And the dog is exactly like him, it's an android, or just artificial in general. And it does have different powers and stuff like that, but I think it should be noted that he was killed in the comics by the Grim Reaper. And now I'm about to make a big jump from him being killed by the Grim Reaper to the fact that he was killed by azalea bushes. Now this could be a reference to Azazel from the X-Men, but I highly doubt it. That's just me trying to reach all the way across the country with that one. And then that cues Vision crack number 2 when Agnes pulls up with, quote, just the item that we require. And that's when Wanda uses her magic all willy-nilly, which kind of worries Vision. He wants to try and stay hidden, but Wanda's tired of being hidden. Just another moment of us believing and knowing that Wanda is going to end up being the antagonist at some point, or at least I believe that myself. And then we get into a private conversation between Darcy, Jimmy, and Monica. And I wanted to point out that when they bring up Captain Marvel, Monica actually shows some visible disdain, which I want to know exactly what Captain Marvel did. Because then you go back to Spider-Man Far From Home, where they talk about don't invoke her name. What did she do? And then Monica talks about an aerospace engineer that would totally be up for this challenge. And immediately I'm thinking maybe it's Reed Richards, hopefully. But in the Spanish translation with the subtitles, she was talking about a female. So that's out the window. We have no idea who she's talking to. It could be Sue Storm, but I doubt it. And then we have another moment where the MCU is just trying to slowly, gradually bring us into what Wanda is really capable of, which includes matter manipulation, where her clothes kind of binded with the Kevlar uniform that she was wearing, and now her clothes are 87% Kevlar. And then we get a really creepy and revealing scene of Vision being at work where he unearths Norm's real personality, and Norm tells him exactly what we know now, that Wanda is unhinged, and that he needs to stop her because everything that people are going through in this town is actually painful. And the message that Darcy sent Vision included something about the radiation that they keep mentioning, and something makes me believe that this radiation could be something that activates the X gene. But that's just me trying to be hopeful that the X-Men will be here anytime soon. And then we cut to Wanda's kids trying to do some dog tricks with Sparky, which leads us into Monica piloting a drone from the 80s so that they could peer into the Hex without interference or without losing their technology. But once Wanda sees it, she frames it out of the shot within her reality show and then tries to take some sort of aggressive action. She gets angry, and then that's when the asshole, Tyler Hayward, says, "Take the shot." Which I personally don't think to be a good idea when she almost shit on Thanos. I don't really think that you should be taking a shot at her, but that's just me. And then that's when not Wanda, but Scarlet Witch walks out of the hex. She's now fully insane. She is long gone. And then that's when she has a real drop the mic moment, where she kind of just tells Tyler Hayward to get out of my swamp, and then flips his men's guns on him, which that was a jaw-dropping moment. But after she tells Sword to get out of her swamp, we move on to the Lagos commercial, which is just a reference to Lagos, Nigeria, where she made a huge mess. That was kind of just the whole point of that. And then when Wanda goes back in, Sparky is actually dead from the azalea bushes that I was talking about earlier. And that's when her kids, they try to rapidly age themselves, and she stops them, and then she kind of hypocrisizes herself by saying that you can't fix the dead, you can't bring them back, no matter how much it hurts, when this is exactly why we're here. And then instead of WandaVision, we get Wanda versus Vision, where Vision brings up Norm and how he unearthed his suppressed personality, and then she tries to suppress him and roll the credits within the show, but it doesn't work. And he mentions changing everything again, which lets us know even further that Marvel is grabbing their inspiration from House of M, because in House of M, she's changing everything over and over and over again. And then that's when we get a confirmation that Vision actually has no idea about his life before Westview. But then Wanda says something interesting, that she doesn't even know how any of this started in the first place, which might lead me to believe that there might still be some overlaying figure boosting the power of the Hex, or even maybe started it, and she's just kind of taken it from there. Kind of like a studio head to Wanda's director status. And the reason I say that is because it could be this studio head that is responsible for the recasting of Pietro, because when Evan Peters shows up to the front door, she knows that it's Pietro, but she's really surprised that he's there. She had no idea that anything was going to be happening with that. But the fact that Pietro shows up as Evan Peters leads me to believe that the multiverse is now completely confirmed. We're ready to go. We're ready to jump into it. But the thing I'm curious about is Paul Bettany said earlier this year or the last year that there was an actor that he was going to be working with in this show that he had never worked with before, and he was really excited to. Now, I don't know if he worked with Evan Peters or not, but I don't believe that this is that actor, so we still have another character to look forward to at the end of the show. But also, Elizabeth Olsen said that there was a Luke Skywalker showing up in Mandalorian type style event that happens at the end of this show. And the only candidates that I know as of right now that it could be would be Magneto, Doctor Strange, but that wouldn't even make sense because Paul Bettany has worked with Doctor Strange before, obviously, or maybe a member of the Fantastic Four, but that would be an absolute reach. But that's going to do it for this week's episode. Let me know what you thought in the comments down below. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed. Peace.